Okie dokie. So what we'll do to start is I'll get you guys kneeling or standing, whichever is comfortable, and we're going to start with some thoracic cars. So cars are those controlled articular rotations I was talking about. So we're going to bring the hands out to the sides, we're going to hug ourselves, and what we're going to be working on is that upper section of our spine. So I'm going to get you to tuck the chin in, keep the core tight, and then we're rounding forward, arching through that upper part of our back. We're going to twist out to the left-hand side then, get a little bit of rotation through the rib cage. I want you to keep the hips really steady. And then we're going to drop the left shoulder down, right shoulder up, so now into a bit of a side bend. We're going to reach back up and around, just be mindful of your lower back here. We're trying to think about opening up the chest towards the ceiling, and then we drop the right shoulder down towards the ground and we're into a side bend on the opposite side. We're going to rotate through the torso here as well, so keep those hips really steady. And then curl forward, trying to round through that upper back. Come back to your starting position. Stack the vertebrae on top of each other, and then we're going to reach out to the side and swap onto the other side. And I'll do it from a side angle so you can see that I'm trying to keep my core engaged and lower back flat, and it's just the upper section of my spine that's doing the work. So we tuck the chin, we're going to go back the opposite way now, so round through that upper section of the spine. Then I rotate out towards the right hand side, getting that twist through the torso. I'm going to drop my right shoulder down towards the ground, the left shoulder up towards the ceiling, get that nice big stretch. Imagining that I'm in two planes of glass, so I don't want to break the glass in front of me or behind me. I'm going to reach back up and around now. Try not to let my hips shoot forward. And then I drop my left shoulder over towards the ground on the left hand side, right shoulder up towards the ceiling, get a nice big stretch on the right hand side of the ribcage. And then I twist through that torso again. Round, down, into that forward fold. Trying to create space between my rib cage. So we're going to take a big deep breath here. And try and imagine breathing into the back of the ribs. So you're trying to expand each rib cage. And breathing out. We're going to do that again. Breathe in. Try and expand the rib cage out to the back. And then breathe out. Come back up to the start. And now we're going to go into our shoulder parts. So with the shoulder cars, we're trying to think about moving our arm in our shoulder joints. We're trying to create a big circle. Often what happens is we rotate through the torso quite a bit. So tip is if you hold yourself with your left hand, trying to hold on to that rib cage, you'll be able to feel if you start twisting back. We're going to take the right hand into a fist, bring it across the torso like so. And we're trying to rotate out towards the outside. So I'm trying to externally rotate, bring that arm up towards my chin, my cheek, maybe my ear for some of us. And then if you saw that video for the testing, we're trying to keep the shoulder blade down, make sure it doesn't pop out to the side as well. Yeah, nice guys. Let's rotate the arm in and reach back and around, trying to create as big a circle as you can. Keep twisting in and in and in. Watch the shoulder hiking up towards the ear. So if you see me from the side, now my pan is facing towards the outside. So I'm trying to internally rotate that shoulder there. Lower it down beside the torso, and then let's reverse it. So we're going to lift straight up behind us. Try and open up the bicep towards the ceiling. Keep the torso facing forward, so watch this happening. And then up and around as slow as we can. Nice. And then we're going to do one more on that side, just a little bit faster. So bringing it across, rotating the bicep out towards the outside, up towards our cheek, chin, maybe our ear, and then twisting that bicep in and around as we reach back, back, back. Keep twisting, my little fingers pointing forward, thumb pointing back, hand facing out to the side. And let's lift it back up and around, just trying to warm up that shoulder. Again, if you're feeling any pain during these movements, just make the circle smaller. So you always want to be moving pain-free. We're going to do the same on the other side. Holding on to the rib cage with the other hand. Left hand comes across the torso, rotates out towards the outside, up towards cheek, chin, ear. Let's internally rotate and reach back and around. And again, it's about noticing maybe one side's a little tighter than the other, maybe you can move more easily on one side, and it just helps you notice if there's any difference between the sides. So we're going to reverse that now, so lift that arm straight up behind, so you can see me here. And making sure that my torso doesn't lean forward, so keep that torso upright the whole time. Rotate the bicep up towards the ceiling, reach up and around, in by my ear, my cheek, my chin, and down and across. And we're going to do that one more time, just a little bit faster. Across the body, up towards the cheek, the chin, the ear. Internally rotate, bring the arm back and around, keep the torso really steady. Good, try and watch any leaning out to the side as well. And then we're going to reverse it. Arms straight up behind, rotate up towards the ceiling. And then down and across. We're going to do our ankles next because we've got a couple of squat movements in this flow. So I just want to get everyone's ankles warmed up. So what I typically do is comfortable for me is I sit down like this. I'm going to work on my left ankle. So I bring my left arm in underneath my left knee, grasp onto my right bicep, and then I'm holding onto my left shin like this. If you need to support yourself up against a wall or even a chair, that's totally fine. And if it's not comfortable having the knee all the way in, you can just hold your leg out a little bit further. Basically, all you want is enough space so you can do rotations with the foot. So point the toe down towards the ground. We're going to bring the big toe in and around, trying to create a big circle with our toes. So let's imagine that we've got markers at the end of our toes and we're trying to draw a big circle on a piece of paper in front of us. So the slower the better with these. We reverse it. Because the slower we go, it lets us see if there's any bits that we jump, we skip. Maybe the foot wants to cramp a little bit, and that can kind of tell us if there's any areas we need to work on. I'm just going to do 2 on each side, but nice and slowly. So you should be about halfway through your second rep now. Bring the little toe back out and around, up towards the ceiling. Nice, and then down and around, back down towards the floor. Nice. Going to change over onto the other side. So pointing the right toes down towards the ground. Big toes come in towards the center, up towards the ceiling. And you're trying to feel that the shin bone stays in position. So we don't want to see that the shin's moving with the ankle. We're trying to isolate the foot from the shin bone, which is why we hold the shin bone. Lovely. And then big toe comes back in and around, up towards the ceiling, down and around towards the outside. And then let's reverse it for the last time. Nice, guys. In and around, and back down. And then rest there. Nice work. Okay, so what we're going to do to start our flow is we're going to begin in a cat-cow position. So if anyone wants to grab a sip of coffee, a sip of water, now's the time to do it. Okay. So with the cat cows, some of you guys might have done cat cows before in other classes or maybe in the yoga class. In this class, we always start from our tailbone and we're trying to go as slowly as possible. We're thinking about each section of our spine being in an individual segment and we're trying to move it independently. So we start with our back nice and flat, our core engaged, and then what we're going to do is just start with the tailbone. We're trying to just move this part of our spine. We start tucking it underneath, pulling our belly button up. Now we're moving into our mid back. We start rounding through the mid back. Start rounding through that upper back, and then I tuck the chin and elongate that neck. Trying to create a big round section of my spine. We're going to reverse it now, starting with the tailbone again. So keep the chin tucked. Try and tip the tailbone up towards the ceiling, like we're creating an S or a wave with our spine. Belly button goes down towards the ground. Rib cage goes down towards the ground. Chest bone scoops forward, and then chin comes up. We're going to come back into neutral, and now all we're going to do is try and move our lower section of our spine. So we're going to try and keep our rib cage really, really steady, and just round through the lower back, and then tip the tailbone back up. Round through the lower back, and then tip the tailbone back up. Again, it can be quite natural for some of us or normal for some of us for a spine to move all as one. So it's really important that we try and reteach the spine to move bit by bit. Now the tougher bit that we're going to do is try and keep this lower section of our spine steady. So pulling through the lower abdomen, and we're just going to try and think about rounding through the upper section of our spine. So you're almost imagining that starting from the middle of your rib cage, round, tuck the chin, drop the chest down. Trick is here, keep that belly button pulled in, and then round to this upper part of our spine again. Don't worry if the lower part isn't moving, just be aware of it if it is, and then that's something for you to work on. So it's a really supple movement, and we're just trying to get that spine nice and warmed up. One more. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go into, from a beast into an inchworm, into a shoulder press stand. So if you're not comfortable doing this, which I'm just going to quickly demo when we walk in, I want you guys doing kneeling W to Y rack. So squeeze, push, and you're still going to get the same benefit of opening up the chest and opening up the shoulders. Otherwise, we're all going to tuck the knees or the toes under. Knees and underneath the belly button. Let's push the hips up towards the ceiling and inching those feet up. We try and keep looking back towards our toes, coming back. Bend the knees and we're back into beast. Try and keep the knees hovering if you can. If you need to put them down the ground, that's fine. Hips back up, walk those feet in towards your hands. Try and push the ground away. Really activate those shoulders. Let's go back into our beast. Bend the knees. So now what we're going to do, knees out to the side, slide the hands forward, and we're into a loaded beast to wave unload. Option here to keep the knees on the ground if you want. Otherwise, we're going to lift the knees up off the ground, hips up towards the ceiling into a downward dog again. And then we're working on that spine curve again, curving ourselves forward, making sure that you have enough space. So your shoulders should be over your wrists now. And then we squeeze the glutes, drop the hips down, shoulders back and down, chest up. You can drop the thighs onto the ground if you want, or you can keep the arms strong, keep the thighs hovering off the ground. And then tuck the chin, round back and around. Come back the way you came, downward dog, knees down. We're going to do that one more time. And for anyone who wants to keep the knees on the ground, we'll just demo that as well. So pulling ourselves forward. For everyone else, hips up towards the ceiling. Rounding through that spine, dropping the hips down, shoulders back and down, chest up, chin up. Lovely. Reverse, so tuck the chin, push the ground away, round through that spine. So it's more about moving through the spine, getting a nice stretch on the hamstrings. And then take a rest here in child's pose if you need. Breath or two. And then what we're going to do is push back up into downward dog, and we're going to inchworm those feet in towards our hand again. We're going to come up to stand at the top of our mat. So again, if you need to bend the knees, that's totally fine. Let's just hang in here for a second or two. You can rock forward or back onto your toes and heels just to get a little bit of a stretch into the back of the legs. And then we're going to reach up towards the ceiling, hands interlace overhead. And we're going to lean towards the left-hand side, getting a nice stretch in the rib cage again. Breathing in, come back in towards the center. Breathing out, reach up and over to the side. Nice big stretch. And then we're just going to go through two sun salutations, just normal sun salutations from yoga to get warmed up a little bit. So reaching up overhead, and then hands down towards the mat. You can bend the knees if you need to. Try and straighten the legs. You can put your hands onto your thighs or onto your knees, look up. And then coming back down, we're going to step the right leg back, left leg back. If you need to, knees can be on the ground here. And then we're going to lower ourselves down towards the ground, pushing up into an upward dog again, just like we did in our wave unload. Pushing back into a downward dog. Again, you can be in a puppy pose here with the knees on the ground if you need to. And then we're going to lift our left knee up, step it forward in between our hands. Right leg follows. And then let's breathe in, reach up overhead. And we're going to do that one more time on the other side. Breathing in, reach up. Breathing out, fold forward. Breathe in, reach up just halfway. Breathing out, hands come back down to the mat. Step back with that left foot. Step back with the right foot. And then lowering back down. You can go in a full plank, you can use your knees. Breathing in into an upward dog again. And then push back either into a puppy pose or into a downward dog. We're going to lift that right knee in, bring yourselves forward and step in between the hands. Coming back up to stand again. Breathing in, reach up overhead. And then come back down. We're going to work on some squat movements and hip openers now. So if you just walk the feet out towards the outside of the mat. What we're going to do is a cook squat. So we're going to reach down towards the toes. Nice big stretch in the back of the hamstrings. And then come back down into a deep squat. So this is where we're trying to work on that passive range. We're just relaxing down as far as we can. Ideally trying to keep the heels down. We're going to take our two hands out towards our right knee and just rock forward and back. So now I'm lifting that right heel up off the ground, just rocking forward and rocking back, just trying to get a little bit of movement through the ankle and through the hip. Just on that one side, and then we change over onto the other side. Hands on either side of that left thigh and left knee, and just rocking forward and back on that left side. If you need to, you can hold onto a wall or a chair or anything in front of you just for a little bit of balance. Especially if you find deep squats quite hard, so we're doing a few deep squats now. So hands back onto the mat, hips up towards the ceiling, nice big stretch on the hamstrings, and then standing up again. We're going to do the same, but just a different combo this time. So reaching down towards those toes, nice big stretch on the back of the legs, back down into a deep squat, and then we're going to do some animal flow movements. So reaching ape, hands come together, reach forward, round through that spine, as if I'm trying to dive into the ground in front of me. My ears are inside my biceps. Yeah, savage guys, maybe. Coming up, toes stay on the ground, but I lift my heels, I keep my hips low, and then I'm trying to reach those hands out to the side, chest nice and proud. And I'm using that balance. I'm using my core to stay nice and controlled. Lovely. Return to reach. So come back down to where we were, back of the hands together, curving through that spine. And then cook squat again. So hands on the mat, push those hips up towards the ceiling, and then coming back up. We're going to do one more, which is called an elevator squat. And it's going to work on that active deep squat range. So reaching down again, nice big stretch on the hamstrings, sit back and down. We're in our passive deep squat, whatever that is for us. And then what I'm going to get you to do is hands out in front for a little bit of counterbalance, kicking those shoulder blades back and down. So our back is nice and active, our core is nice and active, and we're just lifting up and holding. Pause. Lovely. Up again. Pause. Breathing nice and steady through this. Up again. And then stand. We're going to do that one more time. Reaching down towards the ground again. So again, if you need anything to hold on to for a bit of counterbalance, please do. Into our passive deep squat, just relaxing here for a second or two. And then hand comes out in front again. Activate the shoulder blades, core tight. Let's lift up. Let's lift up. One more. And then final one, let's stand up. Walk those feet back in together. We're going to reach down towards the mat and then inchworm those feet, so like a static inchworm, back just about halfway into our mat, and we're going to bend those knees down into a beast. If you need to take a rest here, just drop the knees down. What we're going to do is some beast kickbacks. Ideally, we all have our knees up off the ground, but if you need to keep the knees on the ground for these, that's totally fine. We're going to set beast, lift the knees up, and let's start pushing that leg straight out behind us. I'm looking for that straight line, squeezing my glute and hamstring, and then coming back in. Other leg, nice and straight, point the heel, really active, lovely. One more on each side, push the leg behind. Good, come back in. Other leg, squeeze, back in, and let's walk those feet back behind us. We're into our loaded beast again, and we're going to go left leg front step. I step forward with that left leg, keep my hands on the ground here. So if this position is really hard, this is where pillows come in handy. So you can support yourself up a little bit higher with the pillows if you want. And then there's the option here again, if you wanted to drop the elbows down onto either the mat or onto the pillow. I'm just going to move around slightly so you can see what I'm going to do with my front leg next. So whatever position we're in, whether we're up tall, whether we're down low, supported on pillows, I just want you to have that knee in beside your arm. And what we're going to do is some push and pulls against that arm. So we're going to work on that active range through the hip. So I'm going to take that knee, I'm going to push it into my arm, really kicking in the hip flexor into the groin. And we're going to push, push, push for 5, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to squeeze my glute and try and open up that leg out to the side for 5, 3, 2, 1. If my leg moved, my elbow's meeting that leg again, I'm going to push in again for 5, 4, 2, 1. Squeeze the glute, try and open up that hip again. Keep the foot flat on the ground. Really trying to activate the glute to open up that hip. And we'll do that again. So elbow in towards the knee, push, 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 push. Try and ramp up that tension a little bit more, so push that a little bit harder. Really feel that hip flexor kick in. And then squeeze the glute and hamstring and open up. Now, again, we're just going to drop down and go into a passive stretch here. So I just want you to switch everything off. Make sure you're nice and supported, there's no pain to the lower back or anything like that. We're just trying to open up the hips. Really get a nice deep stretch, maybe into the back of our, or the front of our back thigh, excuse me, and then into the left hip as well. Yeah, lovely guys. Just breathe nice and deep. And then what we're going to do is we'll come back up. You can move the pillows out to the side. Just twist around so we're all the same. And we're going to push back into a loaded beast. And do the same on the other side. So right leg, front step forward, keep the hands down onto the ground. And then we're going to do those push pulls again. And if you can see, I keep my foot flat the whole time doing this. Elbow inside the shin or the knee, and I'm going to gently push that knee against my arm, ramping up a bit of tension in that hip. For 5, 3, 2, squeeze the glute and hamstring, lift that knee out towards the outside, and then elbow back in. We're pushing that leg against the elbow again for 5, 3, 2, 1. We're going to squeeze the glute and hamstring. Try and open up that hip again, so really feeling it at the side of the hip here. Trying to create space between our elbow and our knee, and then if we did create that space, the elbow comes back in towards the shin or the knee again, and we're going to push for another 5, 3, 2, 1. Squeeze the glute, side of the hip. Try and open up that hip again. And then just relax there into the stretch. And again, just dropping the elbows down if you can, if you want to use those pillows, or if this is enough of a stretch for you, that's totally fine. We're just staying here for a couple of breaths. So we're taking that joint close to its end range, and then we're using the push and pulls to try and strengthen up all those muscles around the joint. And that's what helps us get that active range for our squats, for our running, all good stuff. Okay, we're going to push back now. Have your pillows closed still. We're into our downward dog, and then we're going to come in underneath into a pigeon pose. So I'm going to get you to lift the left leg, swing that left leg in underneath, and this is where if you can't comfortably get that left hip down to the ground, just make sure you're popping a pillow in underneath your hip. Maybe you need one underneath the knee. Just make sure you're nice and supported on this. I'm going to give a couple of different options for this because kind of a mixed level class. Some of you guys have done this one before with me. What we're looking to do is ramp up that tension in the hip flexor again working on that strength for our squats and stuff like that. By lowering ourselves down, getting into that passive stretch, then I want you to kick in that hip flexor, try and lift the arms up and hold yourself here. Quite a deep stretch, quite a fair bit of work going on in the hip flexor. So just go to a range that's comfortable for you. And if it's not comfortable, just stay where you are. If you're able to do that quite comfortably, we're going to add in a barrel monkey just to work on opening up the shoulders and the chest a little bit more. So we're using that hip flexor to hold ourselves in this position, hold our torso up. And if you imagine, it's very similar to what we need to do in the squat, but our chest would just be out here. So again, we're working on really strengthening those hips. And then hands come back down. You can relax forward into a bit of a passive stretch here. If you want, you can bring the hands in underneath your head for a little bit of support. And then what we're looking to do is just switch off those muscles and get that nice deep stretch into that left glute. So again, you can play around with angles here if you want to be propped up onto your elbows, propped up onto your hands, whichever is comfortable for you. We're going to work a little bit on our back leg now. So I'm going to get you to lean out to the side a little bit, your left hand side. You're going to pull that right knee into a 90-degree position. If you're new to this, leaning out to the side will probably give you enough space to try and lift that leg. If you've done this before with me, I want you to try and work on sitting upright. This is going to take your hip further into internal rotation. So just find a range that's good for you. Don't worry if the back foot doesn't actually lift up off the ground. We're just trying to get it to peel up off the ground. Holding the left foot with the right hand, create a little bit of tension. Try and drive that the left knee down, right knee down to the ground, get mixed with my thighs, down to the ground, and then try and pull that right foot up off the ground towards the ceiling. If you're getting a fair bit of space between that, I'm going to tell you how to adjust it next. Drop the foot down. Let's try and squeeze the side of the glute and drive that knee up towards the ceiling. So now we're working on external rotation. Lovely. And again, if you're finding it really hard, just lean out to the side to give yourself a bit more space. Drop that knee down. If you lift that back foot up quite easily, let's twist a little bit towards that right thigh and then try and peel that foot up again. Again, that's going to force you more into internal rotation. So it's going to be a little bit harder. Let's drive the foot down to the ground, try and lift that knee up. If you are twisted, come back with your torso facing forward and make sure that hip doesn't drop back. So most of you seem pretty good at keeping the hips nice and stacked. Lovely, we're gonna do that one more time. Again, twist out towards the thigh. If you could lift your foot up quite easily. Let's try and drive that knee down. Really feel the hips work on this and pull that foot up towards the ceiling. We're gonna hold this one for a little bit longer. So for an extra 5, 3, 2, 1, foot down, torso forward again, drive the foot down, knee comes up towards the ceiling. Again, just squeezing the side of the glute, making sure that our pelvis stays nice and steady and looking forward. So we should really feel that in the side of the hip. And then just relax there. Bring the hands back down to the mat, bring the foot in behind you, we're going to push back into a pigeon pose and then work onto the other side. So again, if you want to move those pillows, and we're going to bring ourselves back and down, pillow in underneath. If you're dancing at all at your lower body, you might need those pillows more than you normally would. And we're just looking to make sure that we're nice and supported on this. Just try and relax into that stretch first. Just get over that stretch, reflex. And then we're going to do the same again. So hands out to the side, try and lower that torso down. Again, there may be a difference on one side than the other. If it's comfortable for you, we're going to ramp up that tension in the hip flexor again. Let's try and lift the hands off the ground. You can just play around with this if you want. If this is fairly comfortable, hands into the lower back, and we're going to do some scap squeezes. Try and squeeze the shoulder blades together. And again, this is going to be important for those squats. If we can activate those shoulder muscles, activate the core while we're in a flexed hip position, which is what we're in now. That will carry over really well. So squeeze those shoulder blades together. And then for the last one, we're going to squeeze the shoulder blades together. Try and keep the tension on, hands out to the side, up, overhead, into a prisoner stretch. It's going to be a little bit tougher. Just make sure it's not the lower back doing the work. We should feel it in the front hip flexor and in our core. And then hands back down. We're going to relax down into that stretch again. And again, you can compare in the different angles here. If you want to be up on your elbows, up onto your hands. And just breathing in nice and deep, trying to switch off. Nice. We're going to bend that left knee, bring it out to the side. I'm just going to shift around so you can see what we're doing again. So we've got our front knee at that 90 degrees and our left knee at that 90 degrees as well. If you need to, leaning out towards the right hand side a little bit. Let's drive this back knee down to the ground and try and lift the ankle up off the ground. So we're really working on that internal rotation. If this first one's quite easy, we can change our position on the last one. Foot down, keep the torso forward and then squeeze the side of the glute to try and lift that knee up the ground. I don't want to see anything dropping back like this, which doesn't look like anything is, which is what we want. So knee up towards the ceiling. And then we're going to lower that back down. Let's twist the torso. If it felt relatively easy, bringing that leg further into internal rotation. Try and drive the knee down. Lift that foot up towards the ceiling. Guys. And then foot down, torso back to the front. Let's squeeze the glute, try and open up that hip again. Drive the knee up towards the ceiling. So we're not just kind of sitting here and hanging out. We're trying to make this really active. You might get a little cramp on the side of the glute. Totally normal. And then back down, we're going to twist the torso out towards the side if it felt good for you. And then drive that knee down, peel this foot up again. It can be a difference in the two sides. It normally is for most people, but it's just good. It helps us understand what our body's telling us. Hopefully I've distracted you now for those extra few seconds. We're going to hold for another 3, 2, 1, foot down, torso forward again. Let's drive that foot up. Or foot down, knee up towards the ceiling. Yeah, nice one. Again, don't worry if the knee isn't actually getting up off the ground. Lovely. Well done. Lowering that foot back down, hands onto the mat. Try and bring that back leg in underneath again into that pigeon pose and push back into a downward dog. You can either go into a child's pose here or just stay in the downward dog, just pedaling out those feet. And then what we're all going to do is go into a puppy pose. So puppy pose, we drop the knees down, very like a child's pose.
but with a little bit of downward dog involved as well. So we're trying to keep the hips up and drop the chest down. Head comes down towards the mat like this. And what we're going to do is work on opening up our chest, our lats, our thoracic spine. In this position, I just want you to make sure that your lower back is nice and supported, so pull in through the lower abdomen. Try and keep the forehead on the ground if you can. Then we're going to lift up onto our fingertips. So just trying to get a nice deep stretch. We're going to do the same idea with the push and pulls. So I'm just going to keep my head out to the side so you can hear me properly. But I'd like you guys to try and keep that forehead down onto the ground the whole time. We're going to drop our palms onto the ground, our elbows onto the ground. And what we're going to do is push into the mat and try and round through that upper part of our spine again, like we did in our cat-cow warm-up. So we're just trying to focus on that upper part of our spine rounding. I'm tucking the chin, trying to spread those shoulder blades apart, almost trying to indent my elbows and my hand into the ground. I'm going to come up onto my fingertips now, arms straight. I'm going to try and drop the chest down a little bit further towards the mat. And I'm squeezing those shoulder blades together, trying to open up and out to the outside. If this position is uncomfortable for anyone, you can also do this on a chair with a chair in front of you. Let's drop the elbows down, hands down into the mat. Try and spread the shoulder blades round to that upper back again. So just going to keep going through a few of these push and pulls. And basically what we're looking to do is try and create space and round through our thoracic spine here. And then when we drop the chest down, come up onto our fingertips, which we're all going to do now. Squeeze those shoulder blades together. You're trying to wrap the armpits out towards the side. Now we're trying to open up the lats and open up the chest. Maybe the bit of the shoulders as well. So I'm trying to be active here. I'm squeezing the shoulder blades together and pulling up through the lower abdomen. We're going to do it one more time. So elbows come down to the mat, palms are flat on the mat. I'm pushing into the ground, trying to round through the spine. Almost imagining I'm indenting my elbows and fingertips into that mat. Tuck the chin. And then last time, up onto the fingertips, drop the chest down, chin down. If you want to make it a little bit deeper, chin comes to the mat and we look forward. I'm trying to open up those armpits out to the outside, squeezing those fingertips together. Yeah. Nice, guys, really good. And then we're just going to relax here. So if you want, you can keep the fingertips up high, drop the forehead down, or if it's more comfortable, you can go back into a child's pose. Just take a breath or two here, and we're going to go into our animal flow finish here before a nice little cool down. So just take a breath or two. Nice work. Okay, slowly coming out of that. What we're going to do, 2 exercises, animal flow exercises. So this is where I am going to demo, and then we're going to go through together. If these aren't comfortable for you guys, I'm going to give you an alternate for it as well. The first one is going to be a loaded beast front step, which is what we did earlier on in the flow. So we're stepping forward, chest up nice and proud, drop that back hip down, hand down to the mat, pushing back. We're going to try and do 3 on each side of these. If you're familiar with animal flow, you're more than welcome to go into an under switch so that we're into our crab position. If you aren't familiar with animal flow, don't worry, just come into your crab position and we're going to do some crab reaches. A couple of different options here. If you're new to it, just work on getting the hips up and down, almost like a hip thrust. If you're familiar with it, hand comes in front of us, lifting up, squeeze the glutes so we're in a nice straight line, and then we twist on that base arm and reach up overhead. So this is where we're getting that lat work in again. If that's not comfortable on your back, just work on this. 3 on one side, and then change 3 on the other, and then we under switch again, back into our loaded beast to front step. We're just going to go through a couple of rounds of that for about 3 to 5 minutes. We'll see how everyone's getting on. If those aren't good for you, you can either do a mountain climber or an elevated mountain climber here, nice and controlled. If that's not comfortable on anyone's toes or anything, dead bugs or another option for your core. Again, just looking for 3 on each side. And then you can either do those supported hip thrusts like this, or glute bridges, or even hip thrusts off the couch if you're going for the elevated option. If you can, let's try and go for the animal flow movements because they're nice and functional and nice and challenging. So hands forward, hips back. I've got the clock on, so don't worry. We're going to go left leg front step in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Just trying to get as many rounds in as you can. Try and alternate those legs. We're going to go for 3 on each side. Just really try and work opening up the chest, and opening up the hips. Now we're going to go into that under switch for those who are comfortable with it. Otherwise, we're into our crab position. And let's go left arm crab reach. 3, 2, 1. And for anyone who's comfortable with these, you can fly ahead if you want. Just make sure you're nice and controlled. We're back, onto the other side. Right arm crab reach up and twist. So just picking whatever level is comfortable for you. Now, left leg under switch again. We're into our loaded knees to front step. Again, don't worry if you're moving across the mat when you're doing your under switches. That's what happens. We're never on the same straight line. So just working through your tempo, whatever's good for you. Getting those 3 reps on each side. And then into the under switches. And into our crabs again. Hips up, twist, frame, reach up and over. Come back down, and same again. We're just trying to open up the chest, make sure we're picking on that shoulder and that we're squeezing the glute and hamstring. Change onto the other side. Hips up, twist, frame, and back down. Hips up, twist, frame. And then we're under switching again, back into our loaded beast front step. Shift those hips back and stepping forward. Making sure the chest is nice and proud. Lovely, guys. Yeah, soft bottom. Show well, you see it from the neck on. Chest up nice and proud. And then we're going to do last time into that under switch for our crab reaches. Squeeze the glute and hamstrings, chest nice and proud. Twist and then reach. And come back down. Really looking to activate the glutes and hamstrings. Reach up and over. Come back down. And then change it over onto the side. Hips up, squeeze the glute and hamstrings, reach. And back down, up. Make sure those hips are nice and flat. And up. And then rest there. So lowering yourselves down onto the mat. Hook those knees in towards the chest. If you need to keep the shoulders elevated, if lying on your back isn't comfortable, you can just go into a forward fold. And then we're all going to come into a child's pose position with a little bit of lap stretch as well. So sink the hips back and down. Reach those hands forward and then walk the hands out towards the right hand side. Flip that left hand up towards the ceiling and sink the hips back and down. So we're really just trying to open up the side of the left hand side of our rib cage. And just take slow, deep breaths here. So we're just going to stay in this position for about a minute and then we're going to move over onto the side. So we're going to use this first minute just to get our breath back. And then when we're on the other side, we're going to try and work on some box breathing. So box breathing is really important for trying to calm down the central nervous system, for recovery, stress management. We're going to walk those hands out towards the left-hand side, rotate the right palm up towards the ceiling, and try and get that nice stretch. And when we're here, we're going to try and work on breathing in for 4, hold for 2, breathing out for 4, and hold for 2. So we'll all do that together. We're going to breathe in, hold, breathing out, hold, breathing in, hold, breathing out, hold, breathing in, hold, breathing out, hold, breathing in, hold. I'm going to get you guys to change into a sideline hip flexor stretch now. So using your left arm for a pillow, we're going to pull the right foot in towards the right glute. Try and keep the knee down in line, so we don't want that knee pointing up towards the ceiling. We're just trying to think about pushing that hip through, and again, we're going to focus on that box breathing. Let's breathe in for 5, hold for 2,
Breathing out for 5, hold, and breathing in. Hold, and breathing out. Hold. Last one there, breathing in. Breathing out. And then we're just going to change our body this one. So just making sure we're nice and comfortable, lowering ourselves down onto our right hand side, right bicep, acting as a pillow. Keep that right bottom leg bent out in front, and then getting a nice stretch onto the front of the quad. Just working on that breathing. Just taking deep breaths in your own time. But trying to see if you can add a second to that exhalation each time. And then we're going to release the leg, push yourselves up into a seated position.